I've heard of a pirate who commanded over 80,000 sailors, a fleet larger than most national navies of her time, and then just retired. This isn't a fantasy epic. This is the true story of Zheng Yisao, the pirate queen of the South China Sea. Forget what you think you know about pirates. Her story isn't just one of plunder and chaos. It's a masterclass in leadership, strategy, and sheer audacity that brought empires to their knees. How did a former courtesan rise to become one of the most powerful pirates in history? How did she forge a scattered band of outlaws into an unstoppable naval force? And how did she manage to do what so few in her line of work ever could walk away from it all? Not in chains, but with her head held high and her treasure intact. Get ready, because we're about to set sail into the turbulent waters of the 19th century and uncover the incredible legend of the woman who ruled the waves. Our story begins in the late 1700s, in the bustling, chaotic port of Canton, now known as Guangzhou. Here, a young woman named Shih worked in a floating brothel. Her beauty and sharp intellect were well known, catching the eye of a notorious pirate commander named Zheng Yi. He wasn't just any pirate. He was the leader of a growing coalition of pirate fleets, terrorizing the South China Sea. In 1801, Zheng Yi either abducted or proposed to Shih. The exact details are lost to history, but what is clear is that she was uncontent to be a mere captive or a passive wife. She saw an opportunity. Shih agreed to marry him on one condition: she would share equally in his power and his plunder. This wasn't just a marriage, it was a business partnership. She became Zheng Yi Sao, which simply means wife of Zheng Yi. Together, they forged the disparate pirate gangs of the region into a formidable alliance known as the Red Flag Fleet. Yi was the muscle and the face of the operation, but Zheng Yisou was the brains. She was instrumental in developing the organizational structure, managing the finances, and crafting the grand strategy that allowed their fleet to grow exponentially. For 6 years, they ruled the seas together, their power and wealth swelling with each captured vessel. But in 1807, disaster struck. Zheng Yi was lost at sea during a typhoon, a sudden and violent end for a man who had lived by the sword. His death left a massive power vacuum. The pirate confederation he had built was on the brink of collapse, ready to fracture back into warring factions. The crews looked for a new leader, and all eyes turned to Zheng Yi's seconding, a skilled and respected captain named Chiang Po. But Zheng Yisou had other plans. In this moment of crisis, Zheng Yisao proved she was more than just a pirate's wife. She was a political genius. She knew that, without a legitimate heir and as a woman in a male-dominated world, her claim to power was fragile. So, she made her move. First, she quickly secured the loyalty of the most influential captains, reminding them of the prosperity they had enjoyed under her and her husband's unified leadership. She argued that only she had the strategic mind to hold the confederation together. But her masterstroke was forming a strategic alliance with Chung Po, the man who could have been her greatest rival. Chung Po had been adopted by Zheng Yi years earlier, making him, in a way, Zheng Yisao's stepson. They became lovers and partners, a power couple that commanded the respect and fear of the entire fleet. With Chiang Po's martial prowess and popular support backing her strategic brilliance, Zheng Yisao officially took command of the Red Flag Fleet. She was no longer the wife of the leader. She was the leader. Under her sole command, the Red Flag Fleet entered its golden age. It wasn't just a collection of ships. It was a floating state, a maritime empire with its own government, laws, and economy. At its peak, Zheng Yisao commanded over 1,800 ships and an estimated 80,000 followers, men, women, and even children. To put that in perspective, the entire Spanish Armada that sailed against England had only about 130 ships. Nelson's British fleet at the Battle of Trafalgar had fewer than 40. Zheng Yisao's navy was one of the largest naval forces on the planet. To manage this massive organization, she needed more than just fear. She needed order. And so, she created one of the strictest, most comprehensive codes of conduct in pirate history. This wasn't the chaotic every man for himself world we see in movies. It was a highly disciplined and centrally controlled operation. The code was absolute, and the punishment for breaking it was swift and severe. All plunder had to be registered and presented to the fleet's public fund before anything was distributed. The captain of the successful vessel received 20%, and the rest was placed in a communal treasury to maintain the ships and support the entire fleet. Stealing from this public fund was a capital offense. Desertion was also punishable by death. No pirate was allowed to go ashore without permission, but the code went far beyond just financial rules. It governed personal conduct with an iron fist. Zheng Yisou established strict rules regarding the treatment of captives, especially women. Any pirate who assaulted a female captive without permission was executed immediately. If a pirate and a female captive engaged in a consensual relationship, the pirate was beheaded, and the woman had heavy weights attached to her legs and was thrown overboard. This seemingly brutal rule had a clear purpose: to maintain discipline, prevent internal conflicts, and differentiate her forces from lawless thugs. This strict code transformed her followers from a rabble of pirates into a disciplined, loyal, and incredibly effective fighting force. It was this organization that made the Red Flag Fleet nearly invincible. With her fleet organized and disciplined, Zheng Yisou tightened her grip on the South China Sea. Her empire wasn't just built on raiding ships, it was a sophisticated protection racket. Coastal villages and trading vessels had two choices: pay a tribute to the Red Flag Fleet for safe passage and protection, or face their wrath. Most chose to pay. She essentially created her own system of taxes and customs, controlling trade routes and supply lines all along the coast of southern China. Her influence was so vast that the Qing government's own naval forces were rendered powerless. They were outmanned, outgunned, and outsmarted at every turn. The emperor was furious. He sent admiral after admiral to destroy the pirate queen, and each time they returned in defeat, their fleets shattered. In one famous encounter, Zheng Yisou not only defeated a massive Qing fleet, but captured 63 of their ships, incorporating them into her own navy. The government's ships were no match for her battle-hardened captains and innovative tactics. Frustrated and humiliated, the Qing government turned to foreign powers for help. They hired the British Royal Navy, the undisputed masters of the sea at the time. Surely, they could deal with a mere pirate. The British came, confident in their superior firepower and training. They were soundly defeated. Zheng Yisou's knowledge of the local waterways, her use of smaller, more maneuverable ships, and her clever guerrilla tactics proved too much for the larger, more cumbersome British warships. Next, the Qing enlisted the help of the Portuguese Navy, who had a base in Macau. They too launched an attack, only to be blockaded and nearly annihilated by the Red Flag Fleet. Zheng Yisou had now defied and defeated the naval forces of three empires: the Qing dynasty, the British, and the Portuguese. She was the undisputed ruler of the South China Sea. No ship sailed without her permission. No cargo moved without her taking a cut. She'd achieved a level of power and autonomy that was almost unimaginable, but she also knew it couldn't last forever. By 1810, Zheng Yisou was at the zenith of her power, but she was also a realist. She saw the writing on the wall. While she could defeat any single fleet sent against her, the Qing government had limitless resources. They could keep sending ships and armies. Her own forces, despite their strength, were finite. Constant warfare was taking its toll, and maintaining the loyalty of so many ambitious pirate captains was a perpetual challenge. A single bad storm or a major betrayal could unravel everything she had built. She realized she was in a stalemate she couldn't win indefinitely. It was time for the ultimate gamble. Instead of waiting for her empire to crumble, she decided to cash out at the top. She decided to negotiate peace, but she would do it on her own terms. She didn't send an envoy or a subordinate. In an act of incredible bravery, the pirate queen herself, unarmed and accompanied only by a delegation of women and children, walked into the headquarters of the Qing Governor-General, Zhang Beiling. The negotiations were tense. The government initially offered a pardon, but on the condition that her pirates surrender and kneel before the authorities. Kneeling was a sign of submission, of admitting defeat. Zheng Yisou refused. She had not been defeated. She was negotiating from a position of strength. She argued, she bargained, and she used her sharp intellect to outmaneuver the Governor-General. The talks stalled. In a brilliant final move, Zhang Yisao bypassed the official channels and went directly to Zhang Beiling's residence to negotiate with him personally. The final agreement was a masterpiece of diplomacy. It was a victory for the Pirate Queen in every sense but name. Her pirates would be pardoned and could keep their plunder. They would be allowed to settle on land, and many of the men would even be offered positions in the Ching bureaucracy and military. Chuanko, her partner, was made a lieutenant in the Ching Navy and given command of his own fleet. And Zhang Yisao herself, she was granted a full pardon and allowed to retain all the wealth she had amassed. She didn't kneel. She walked away a free, respected, and incredibly wealthy woman. Zhang Yisu's story doesn't end there. She settled back in Canton, the city where her journey began, but she was no longer a lowly courtesan. She was a powerful and influential figure. She opened a gambling house, a respectable and lucrative business at the time, and lived out the rest of her days in peace and prosperity. She passed away in 1844 at the age of 69, having outlived emperors, admirals, and rivals. Her legacy is nothing short of extraordinary. She was a woman who rose from the lowest rungs of society to command a force that challenged empires. She was a brilliant strategist, a shrewd administrator, and a master politician. While history is filled with famous male pirates, few, if any, achieved the level of success, power, and long-term security that she did. Zhang Yisu's life proves that the most successful pirates weren't just ruthless, they were innovators, leaders, and survivors. She didn't just play the game. She changed it, and then she walked away the winner. Thank you so much for joining us on this voyage into the life of the Pirate Queen. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of incredible figures from history. And let us know in the comments who is another unsung hero or villain of history you'd like to see us cover. We love hearing your suggestions. Until next time, stay curious.